Hey everyone, in today's video I want to break down the following phrase from the book of Proverbs, specifically Proverbs chapter 15 verse 27. And it reads, "He that is greedy of gain troubleth his own house." I find this very interesting and I want to discuss it with all of you in this video. So what does it really mean to be greedy of gain? Well, to be greedy of gain is essentially to fall into these three criteria where you're not content, so you're always looking for more. If you remember the saying of King Solomon in Ecclesiastes chapter 5 verse 10, "He that loveth silver shall never be satisfied with silver." So they're never content. And money is a god to you. So the way people like David and Jesus Christ, they honored God, you honor money in that sense. Anybody who has money you honor. Maybe if you're a woman and you see a rich man you want to marry, that kind of thing. So that's where money is a god. And there are often times where you may want to do bad things because there's money involved. You see a lot of today's businessmen engaging in all kinds of exploitive behavior because there is profit in it. So when we talk about troubling your own house, we're talking about your family, which can be you and your spouse and children if you have. So when you are greedy of gain, that is when you love money, as the Bible often said, then especially if you have children, you will not be able to have time for them anymore. But even if you're just like married with your spouse, you won't really be able to have time for each other if all you're doing is looking for money. And in terms of the marriage, that is going to weaken the strength of that kind of relationship where both are more focused on kind of who's making more and in a sense competing against each other. But especially if there are children involved, that is going to jeopardize the future of the children, because if you don't have time for them, then how are they going to develop? And if we're Christians, we're interested in being able to raise children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. If you read Ephesians chapter 6 verse 4, how is that going to happen if we are out all day looking for more money? And a lot of these people, they may say, "Oh, yeah, children are expensive," and stuff like that. But often, when we're in this situation, we're really just looking for how could we get 2 cars if we have one? How could we live in a 3, 4, 5 bedroom apartment? Whereas often, children end up being addicted to technology, get really bad habits, and they develop poor spirituality because you simply don't have time to teach them. And that's why the Bible said we should dedicate a lot of time to educate our children about Him. If you read Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 6 and 7. And Satan also has a pretty good chance of selling iniquity to them, which is why I wrote here, it's fresh meat, because it's like you're essentially giving him a free chance to sow bad seeds in them. And that's why a lot of children are disobedient and all that stuff, because you don't have time to properly train them. As the Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go. If you read Proverbs chapter 22 verse 6. And then also, when you're greedy of gain, when you're constantly looking for money, that's going to create a lot of trouble within the home, because a lot of divorces and separation that happen in today's world occur because of money. Either maybe the breadwinner is not making enough money, and maybe you're the wife, your husband is the breadwinner, but you are not content, you want more, and as a result, there begins to be that quarrel and disagreement. You just kind of want more than what has already been provided. So it often creates a lot of disagreement, and then issues build upon those issues that eventually lead to people separating because they're looking for greener pastures. So it could be the man that's not content, and then he sometimes abandons his family, or it could be the woman that's not content and either does the same or wants to go look after money too, and then doesn't have time to be with the children, or there's just a lot of bickering because there's that lack of contentment. And also biblical principles, people begin to forsake them if they're looking for money. You saw how Achan disobeyed the commandment of God to not take of the accursed thing, which was essentially anything that was kind of like loot from their destruction of Jericho. God said, "Do not take anything from it," but he disobeyed because he was greedy. He saw Babylonian garment and some gold, and he just had to give it. So we begin to trash biblical principles as a result. But we are troubling our own house when we do that, because what ends up happening is we begin to see consequences. And if you read that Achan story I told you about in Joshua chapter 7, you see that what ended up happening to Achan is, it's kind of a long story. You see that the Israelites ended up losing. So Achan troubled the whole nation of Israel because he disobeyed God. And so they all lost as an army as a result. They lost their battle. And then to do justice, Joshua and the other Israelites, they stoned him and his family and possessions to death. So he troubled his own house. And in essence, he pulled it down and destroyed it because he was greedy. As Joshua said, "Why hast thou troubled us? The Lord shall trouble thee this day." And another great example of this is if you consider the story of Gehazi. Gehazi was similarly greedy. And that was why even when Elisha had dismissed the gifts that Naaman had brought as a result of him being healed by God, because Elisha wasn't covetous, he wasn't interested in his gifts, Gehazi ran after him and took some of them and even lied to his master Elisha about it. And he troubled his own house because he said, "The leprosy therefore of Naaman shall cleave unto thee and unto thy seed forever." And Gehazi went out of Elisha's presence a leper as white as snow. There were now spots on his body as a result of that. So this is what happens when we are greedy. We are now setting our family in opposition to God because we are forsaking him by not keeping his commandments, and that is going to be of negative effect to our future and to the future of our household. So that is essentially what Proverbs chapter 15 verse 27 means.